Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So we're starting with the news analysis video for 5th of October and we see कि सिक्किम में glacial lake outburst हुआ है and 7 people have lost their lives because of that. So 22 army personnel, they are missing. South Lonak Lake है, it suddenly overflowed into the Teesta River, creating flash floods that destroyed the Chungthang Dam. So बहुत सारी यहाँ पे चीजें mentioned है single statement में. Firstly, you need to अगेन लोकेट एग्जैक्ट लोकेशन कहाँ है लोनाक लेक की, तीसरा रिवर कहाँ से ओरिजिनेट होती है एंड देन चुंगतांग डैम कहाँ लोकेटेड है. सो दिस इज एन इम्पोर्टेंट टॉपिक फ्रॉम डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट. सो इनिशियली व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट नाउ आफ्टर द डिजास्टर has happened, so the role of again National Disaster Management Authority agency becomes important. So hilly regions में definitely ये एक we can say one of the major threats है, danger है जो रहता है and we need to now be prepared for such incidents या फिर prepared for how we can prevent such incidents from happening. So the floods, they are believed to have triggered after a lake forming from the gradual melting of the Himalayan glacier. Suddenly it overflowed and inundated the Teesta River basin. So because of the faster pace of melting of the Himalayan glaciers, we might see the frequency of such incidents might increase in future as well. So again, we need to ensure कि कैसे हम इसको prevent कर सकते हैं. So herein, management of the water that is flowing into the river, obviously we need to firstly monitor with the help of satellites ki where all such lakes they are being formed, and then water management of those lakes is important because agar suddenly we see cloud burst also, so uske wajah se bhi ye phenomena, ye disaster ho sakta hai. Then LPG subsidy for the Ujjwala beneficiaries has been raised to rupees 300. So this becomes a part of the revenue expenditure, and we always say that it's important for the government to go ahead with the rationalization of the revenue expenditure. So it's not like the revenue expenditure is not good, but when we compare it with the capital expenditure and the revenue expenditure, so obviously revenue expenditure as in direct growth promote nahi karta hai. So herein subsidy provide ki ja rahi hai for the again LPG cylinders. So this would be again, we can say for the consumers, for the beneficiaries, this is going to be a relief, but we can think of it as a short-term measure and not rely upon it for the long-term measure. Instead of providing subsidies, we can focus upon how we can increase the income of the people, or to be specific, the per capita income. So that would be, we can say, a kind of a real impact that is obviously needed also in India, because when we talk about the Indian economy, we are the 5th largest economy in the world. Despite this position, our per capita income is one of the lowest. Talking about the chemistry Nobel Prize, so it goes for the quantum dots. So here in quantum computing, this topic becomes important. So 2023 Nobel Prize in Chemistry has been awarded to 3 people for their work on quantum dots, which are very small crystals with peculiar properties that have found applications in a variety of fields, like new age LED screens में quantum dots use किए जाते हैं, quantum computers में definitely quantum dots are useful. So quantum dots, they are bringing the greatest benefit to the humankind, and we have just begun to explore their potential. So it's important to explore और कहाँ पे potential exist करता है, and definitely they contribute to the flexible electronics, minuscule sensors, slimmer solar cells, and perhaps encrypted quantum communication. So these are very significant areas where we are seeing even potential of growth exists, and उसमें definitely quantum dots का importance इसके साथ increase हो जाता है. So how Madhya Pradesh as a state, it is realizing the Prime Minister's vision of cleaner future. So when we talk about the green energy transition and how Madhya Pradesh is moving forward, So we can basically learn from the model of Madhya Pradesh. So Madhya Pradesh, it is also the only state in the country to have initiated the unique energy literacy drive. So that's a unique and innovative step that can again be implemented and thought about at the pan-India level as well. So energy literacy drive, how renewable energy transition, it is very important that awareness can be generated at the household level. And when we talk about the rooftop solar power panels scheme, so even that can be boosted if the more awareness is generated at this front. So different projects, they have been mentioned over here, so you can just quickly go through it. And Madhya Pradesh, it is to generate extra 20,000 megawatt of green power by 2030. So herein even states, they can also, leverage this opportunity by being a energy surplus state, which can be again exported to other states also and to other neighborhood countries as well. And when we also talk about one world, one grid, so herein different states can contribute accordingly. So definitely the growth potential exists, and herein for when we talk about the fiscal prudence or another options or alternative sustainable alternatives to generate revenue for the states, so that problem can also be solved from here. So other examples have been mentioned how basically at the policy level, Madhya Pradesh is taking forward this green energy transition. So their strategy has been mentioned. The renewable energy technology oriented courses have been launched in ITIs. So at the education level, they are working incentives for the developers, exemption in the electricity duty and energy development cess has been introduced, reimbursement of the stamp duty. So certain administrative and policy measures have been taken up in order to, again, education level pay for the manufacturing, and that's how they're going forward. So as I was just talking about, no more energy poverty and how states can again be energy surplus and use it for export, that can be thought about. Coming to the editorial page.
Can I ask you one question here about the hydrogen energy, like which we dealt in the last page?
Yes, Pravesh.
So, as it is clearly written that hydrogen is largely produced from methane. So, as we all know that wetlands are the sufficient source of methane production. So, can we use our wetlands for the production of hydrogen?
See, one of the raw materials, I'm not so very clear if you are saying that methane is one of the raw materials to produce green hydrogen. Are you clear
As
that
it is written,
green
as it is written on the page, hydrogen is largely produced from methane in steam methane reforming process.
No,
It is
you are talking about hydrogen, but when we say green hydrogen, because there are different types of hydrogen also. There are gray hydrogen, there is brown hydrogen. So I don't think so कि green hydrogen की जब हम बात करते हैं तो methane is one of the raw materials.
So I think I was talking about the hydrogen as such, not green hydrogen.
No. Why we're talking about hydrogen? Green hydrogen is much more important when we talk about renewable energy fuels.
Okay, so what are the different areas where the green hydrogen projects have been working on in India?
I'm not clear about this. You're asking like very specific details. India में
Okay,
exactly
for
कहाँ
sure.
पे work कर रहे हैं.
We can look into detail later.
Yeah, like these are factual things. We can look into this. I think we can focus more upon the analysis part. So if you have any
Okay.
question related to analysis, you can ask that. Okay, then editorial पे let's look at the topics. So herein read retribution for the South, accolade for the North. So herein when we talk about certain disparities and differences when we talk North Indian states and the South Indian states. So let's talk about what are the issues. So Indian federal democracy is states relative population size, it gains political and economic significance. So if specifically states are having rising population, तो उसके कुछ political benefits भी होते हैं, economic significance भी hold करती है. Economic significance we're going to talk about the rising demographic dividend can be one of the economic significance for a rising population state. So the strong linguistic identities in the regional renaissance in the political and social spheres propel the southern states to scale greater heights in all the spheres of development. So in sharp contrast, अगर हम northern states की बात करें, population control has been achieved in southern states. So this is very clear कि southern states, they have been successful in achieving controlling of their populations through social development and economic growth. So it's not important कि अगर like आपके पास if a state does not have larger population तो वहाँ पे economic growth नहीं हो सकती. This has been made clear by the growth of the southern states in India. So in federal political system, changes in the population geography have a lasting impact on the political and economic geography as well. So delimitation and a political representation की बात करें तो Article 81 of the Indian Constitution बोलता है कि जो लोकसभा constituencies हैं in every country, they should have they should be equal according to the size of the population. So that is even the purpose and the objective behind the delimitation exercise as well. So based on 1971 census जो अभी हम use करते हैं for delimitation, जो number of Lok Sabha constituencies है for the states, that was determined and frozen for the next 25 years through the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976. So this is one of the factual details. So 2001 में we have another round of 84th Amendment Act जिसमें we freeze on the numbers of the constituencies for each state. वो आगे और extend कर दिया गया for the first census जो होगा after 2026. So 2026 के बाद जो भी next census होगा उसके बाद delimitation exercise को फिर से किया जाएगा. So population growth rates differ between non-Hindi speaking southern states and Hindi speaking northern states. So definitely population differences exist करते हैं when we talk about states like the proportion of the population जो states में बिहार, छत्तीसगढ़, गुजरात, झारखंड, मध्य प्रदेश इन states में मिलती है, they have increased from 44% to 48%. और जब हम बात करते हैं proportion of population की 5 southern Indian states की, so that has declined from 24.9% to 21.1%. तो it is clear कि even North Indian states में population is still increasing and South Indian states में they have been able to control the population and वहाँ पे population decline देखने को मिला है as a proportion when we talk about this sense. So if equal size of Lok Sabha constituencies हमें करनी पड़ेगी according to the population, so this would mean कि there would be higher number of constituencies created in the North Indian states comparatively to the South Indian states. So this is one disparity which would be visible in coming times because of this change in the demographics in South Indian states and the North Indian states. A problem of balancing political representation, the sub-central units that have lower populations arises in all the federations. So this is one area, and here again example of Canada has been also cited. Then the 5 southern states, they have effectively controlled their population should not be penalized through reduced political representation. So what can be the solution? Pravesh, can you suggest any solution in order to address this problem?
Well,
You're not audible.
just wait. Now it is coming.
Yes.
So what's your question, by the way?
My question is, while I was reading this particular highlighted area, कि because of the change in population, जो South Indian states में, when we talk about delimitation exercise, so the number of Lok Sabha constituencies होगी, South Indian states में वो decrease हो जाएगी क्योंकि delimitation होता है कि each Lok Sabha constituency according to the population वो equal population represent करनी चाहिए. तो because South Indian states में population decline देखने को मिल रहा है, तो वहाँ पे जो number of Lok Sabha constituencies हैं वो भी decline हो जाएगी comparatively to the North Indian states. तो it is being said कि South Indian states जो हैं उनको penalize नहीं करना चाहिए through reduced political representation. तो आप इसको कैसे देखते हो? इसके लिए क्या मतलब कोई solution suggest कर सकते हो या आपका
So
क्या?
so I think the constitution as well as the delimitation commissions, they have clear-cut mandate as to demarcate a particular constituency on the basis of population only, which is written itself in the constitution. So the statement and the arguments given by these 5 southern states that despite taking population control measures, um, it will be a penalizing thing for us when the political representations will be reduced in comparison to the northern states. But the important note here is that the government is not discriminating in the population control in the southern states. The government is constantly focusing on the population control across India, not in the 5 southern states. For an example, I would like to cite an example. The richest state of India is Punjab.
Richest
And
in terms
what
of like you're talking about economic richness or like from the perspective of per capita
exactly?
income or what is the basis?
Yeah, yeah, economic angle I'm saying.
Okay.
So that is the richest state. Um, if how if Punjab used to say that I want some more funds under the Finance Commission because I have tried to reduce the inequalities in the income and reduce the poverty. So that can also be a claim on the basis of which they can argue and they can criticize the central government, especially the Delimitation Commission and other agencies. So I think this is a negative stance which is being given by the southern states because the constitution has written this mandate that on the basis of population itself, the constituencies will be demarcated and the Delimitation Commission will be working on the same formula. And these are the governance reforms which different states are taking. These states are taking in controlling the population. Bihar like states are taking steps in curbing the social ills like crime.
दैट्स ओके, बट मैं ये पूछ रही थी कि अगर पॉलिटिकल रिप्रेजेंटेशन साउथ इंडियन स्टेट्स की कम हो रही है बिकॉज दे हैव बीन सक्सेसफुल इन अचीविंग कंट्रोल्ड पॉपुलेशन, तो क्या ये उनके लिए मतलब पीनल एक्टिविटी होगी, मतलब दे हैव बीन पीनलाइज्ड फॉर द सक्सेसफुल अचीवमेंट? तो इसका कोई सोल्यूशन है कि रिड्यूस्ड पॉलिटिकल रिप्रेजेंटेशन जो होगी फ्रॉम द साउथ इंडियन स्टेट्स, वो क्या उनके लिए नेगेटिव है या उसको भी वो हम मतलब किसी ऑब्जेक्टिव तरीके से देख सकते हैं?
Well, I think it is not a negative thing first of all, but yes, there are apprehensions which could be cited by the southern states as their vote importance will get reduced. For an example, if a constitutional amendment bill is getting passed and all the southern states are in the against of that bill, so on the basis of the northern states and the other states, that bill can be passed. So not on the constitutional amendment bill, yes, but an ordinary bill. So obviously, in passages of the bills in the parliament, this is gonna have some impact on the strength of these states.
Okay, when we talk about, I got to remember one important point कि जब ये political representation वाला setup पूरा system structure change होगा, so when we say कि अगर कोई ऐसा federal principle amend किया जाता है in the Indian Parliament, तो we require the assent of half of the Indian states, state assemblies की half of the assent हमें चाहिए होती है, तो वहां पे हम ये count करते हैं कि the number of states which are giving the assent. तो as in इसकी वजह से this change in political representation is not going to even impact this federal setup also. So that would remain the same. आपको count करने की कितनी states assent दे रही है. It is not on the basis of कुछ मतलब population is not taken into consideration जब states assent देती है to any constitutional amendment which impacts the federal setup. So this is also one important area that can be cited. देन रोल ऑफ पॉपुलेशन फिस्कल ट्रांसफर्स में भी मैटर करता है, तो यहाँ पे थोड़ी प्रॉब्लम हो सकती है. तो वंस इन 5 years जो हम बात करते हैं फाइनेंशियल डेवोल्यूशन ऑफ फंड्स एंड दैट इज ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ द रिकमेंडेशंस ऑफ द फाइनेंस कमीशन. एंड देन हेरिन जो शेयर ऑफ ईच स्टेट है इन द असाइन टैक्स रेवेन्यू ऑफ द यूनियन गवर्नमेंट, वो सजेस्ट एंड रिकमेंड किया जाता है बाय द फाइनेंस कमीशन एवरी 5 years अंडर द आर्टिकल 280. तो एवरी फाइनेंस कमीशन रिकमेंड्स अ फॉर्मूला for both horizontal distribution and vertical distribution. Then population and per capita income of a state. These are considered to be the two important indicators that are always included in the distribution formula with the larger weights. तो यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा fiscal transfers में भी हमें थोड़ा like inequality देखने को मिल सकता है. Inequality बोलना I don't think so would be the right word, but more fiscal transfers would be then happening for the North Indian states. तो यहाँ पे भी we can.
I think rather than, as you just rectified yourself, it is not an inequality, it's a rationalization of the funds by the Finance Commission under the 15th Finance Commission mandate. Because what used to happen is that the grants in aid and the vertical funds which used to get transferred from the Finance Commission to different states were not working effectively. But this time, what we are seeing that different types of directives of the central government and majorly the parliament is focusing that all states should try to incorporate into their governance reforms. For an example, in Bihar, we have alcohol problems. So the finance commission is saying to them, you just take steps in education, literacy, health, and social ills. We will give you funds. In southern states, the population have been controlled. But again, in various other sectors, the finance commission has provisions that you improve them, we will give you the similar amount of funds. So I think it is a management and rationalization of fund by the finance commission rather than having an inequality, and we should not see it with apprehension.
Yes, but South Indian states, they are protesting against this thing. They are basically, they are having an issue that if they have like successfully controlled the population, so as population is also one of the terms of reference under the Finance Commission for financial devolution of funds, so iske wajah se they'll be getting less amount of funds. So per capita income is also one of the bases. So और भी बहुत सारे ऐसे bases है on the basis of which जिस पे fiscal transfers किए जाते हैं to the states. So ऐसा मतलब we can say कि कुछ areas में South Indian states they are performing better, तो जहाँ पे they are lacking they can use that fund in improving those certain areas. And as we just said कि अगर population कम है तो even then these states can be economically ahead compared to other states, which is again visible in the South Indian states. So these are like multiple areas that we need to think about at the same time.
One more thing I would like to cite here, that this is a very wonderful achievement which these southern states have done in terms of population control measures. So today, what is the need in India for today's Bharat is that rather than only focusing on center-state relations, we should also focus on state-state relations, where different states who have problems of population upheaval, they can learn and they can actually interact with these states for the population control measures. Especially if we talk about UP, Bihar, and states like you know MP and others. So we can actually have some synchronization between states to improve this.
Yes. Okay, we move forward. So Bihar caste survey, यहाँ पे we see what has been the impact of this. So what is the report found? Report again findings क्या है? Largest caste category state में कौन सी है? Will the findings influence the upcoming polls or not? And will it make a difference in the lives of the poor and marginalized? So ये सबसे important topic है. So when will the socio-economic profile be released by the government? So कुछ areas हैं when we see कि अब ये जो सर्वे किया गया, द डेटा हैज बीन मेड पब्लिक विच शोज कि जो एक्सट्रीमली बैकवर्ड क्लासेस हैं बिहार में सबसे ज्यादा एज अ प्रोपोर्शन द टोटल पॉपुलेशन, दे आर अ पार्ट ऑफ द बिहार पॉपुलेशन. तो दे एड मतलब extremely backward class and other backward classes together, they make up nearly 63% of the 13 crore population of the state of Bihar. So this is one of the highest we can say. And how did it come about? So Bihar legislature unanimously उन्होंने एक resolution pass किया agreeing to this caste census. Twice this was done in 2019 and then 2020 में pass किया गया. 2021 में all party delegation including the BJP went to Delhi. Prime Minister Modi urged him to conduct a caste census in the country, but again कंट्री में तो नहीं किया गया है. स्टेट लेवल पे बिहार डिड दिस, देन पटना हाई कोर्ट ने स्टे लगा दिया, उसके बाद दे वर गिवन अगेन. तब ये जो एप्रीहेंशन था ऑफ जो स्टे लगाया पटना हाई कोर्ट ने, दैट वाज कि सेंसस नहीं किया जा सकता है बाय एनी पर्टिकुलर स्टेट, दैट इज नॉट अंडर द स्टेट लिस्ट. सो ये क्लैरिफिकेशन वहां से मिली कि इट इज नॉट अ सेंसस, इट इज अ सर्वे जो स्टेट कर सकती है. एंड देन इट वाज गिवन अ गो हेड एंड आफ्टर दैट बिहार हैज लाइक कंप्लीटेड दिस सर्वे. सो आउटकम्स क्या है सर्वे की, ये हमने देख लिया. सबसे बड़ा प्रोपोर्शन जो है एक्सट्रीमली बैकवर्ड क्लासेस है. सो अकॉर्डिंगली जब ये डेटा हमें पता लग रहा है थ्रू दिस कास्ट सेंसस, so accordingly we can take steps for their improvement. as यहाँ पे question भी raise किया गया है कि how is it going to make a difference in the lives of the poor and the marginalized people. देन इसकी वजह से कुछ कंसर्न्स भी इमर्ज हुए हैं कि विद द रिलीज ऑफ दिस रिपोर्ट क्या इसकी वजह से हमें देखने मिलेगा इंक्रीज इन द डिमांड फॉर रिजर्वेशन कोटा इन द बिहार और नॉट. एंड देन वहाँ पे एक प्रॉपर लाइक अलग चेन ऑफ थिंग्स इमर्ज होते हैं व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट कि 50% रिजर्वेशन लिमिट है, क्या उसको ब्रीच किया जाएगा नहीं किया जाएगा. एंड देन डिफरेंट जजमेंट्स जो लाइक इंदिरा साहनी जजमेंट 1992 जजमेंट में क्या आउटकम्स रहे. सो लाइक दीज थिंग्स हैव बीन मेंशन्ड अवेयर. सो अकॉर्डिंगली थिंग्स कैसे चेंज होंगे. सो डेफिनेटली यहाँ पे रोल ऑफ सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑल्सो बिकम्स इम्पोर्टेंट. तो फाइनल टेक क्या होगा, दैट वुड बी डिसाइडेड अकॉर्डिंगली इन फ्यूचर. And will this lead to more welfare schemes or not? So with this data again ये सबसे बड़ा question है. So according to experts in the field उनका मानना ये है कि जो ये survey report आई है, this would definitely force the political parties to announce and initiate more welfare schemes for the poor and marginalized sections of the society. So accordingly polls maybe we can see more लेकिन say more attention being given to such areas in even their political manifestos as well. So थोड़ा सा यहाँ पे politics में भी हमें change देखने को मिल सकता है. OBCs, EBCs, SC, STs, they make up 85% of the total population in Bihar. How can any political party ignore their welfare? So this is a question, and now it will be difficult for those like the current chief minister who had carved out the EBCs from the OBCs under his social engineering plan to remain in power unless his. So kuch yahan pe again political nuances are, these are not so important for us. So significantly government is yet to
So
release. Yeah.
I have two questions on this topic. Number one, it is generally said that jati kabhi nahi jati, which means that caste never goes and it will never go in India, especially in the Indian social economic milieu. So, what do you think that rather than having a caste census or a caste-based survey in India, in the name of welfareism, in the name of um, democratic socialism, we should have gone for social and educationally backward classes survey rather than caste-based surveys?
See, अब यहाँ पे कुछ political interest भी involved हैं, तो
Apart from, because you can't say actually that there are political interests when we are talking about on the admin terms,
मैंने बोला
we
कुछ
have to.
पॉलिटिकल इंटरेस्ट भी हैं जिसकी वजह से ये सर्वे किया गया है. मैं ये नहीं बोल रही सिर्फ पॉलिटिकल इंटरेस्ट की वजह से ये सर्वे किया गया है, तो कुछ ये फैक्टर्स भी हैं विच इज अगेन लेड टू द स्टेट ऑफ बिहार डूइंग दिस सर्वे. जब आप सोशो इकोनॉमिक कास्ट सेंसस की बात करते हो तो दैट इज अगेन 2011 के सेंसस में किया गया था, बट जब प्रॉब्लम आती है कि डेटा इज नॉट बीन मेड पब्लिक, तो ये कुछ एरियाज हैं अगर वहां पे भी एप्रीहेंशंस हैं कि अगर डेटा पब्लिक नहीं किया गया तो हाउ दैट इज बीइंग यूज्ड या मिसयूज्ड. सो ट्रांसपेरेंसी
No,
एंड
I think
अकाउंटेबिलिटी बिकम्स
what I
इम्पोर्टेंट
what I'm saying is
एंड
what I'm saying is what I'm saying is neither the judiciary nor the government have any sort of problem with the caste-based survey. But
यस
my suggestion is rather than the caste-based survey, because the primary statement which both the um, hands of the government are saying, they are saying that caste-based survey will lead to more identification of the beneficiaries so that the welfare mechanism should reach their doorstep. But
यस
I have a question that why only the caste-based survey and why the caste-based survey? Instead of this, why we not go on these scientific lines to identify the beneficiaries on the basis of social and educational backward standards? Why caste? Because caste, if caste will come into these kind of surveys, definitely the political mobilization will happen on the caste lines. Then the vote bank politics will happen. Then the welfare mechanisms will be fine-tuned towards these caste-based associations and caste groups. So all these problems, despite we knowing all these problems, we are still focusing on the caste-based surveys. Don't you think that this is backstep by the government, especially by the judiciary, when it is not saying any word on this?
नो बिकॉज हेयर इन द प्रॉब्लम इज कि आप कैसे यूज करने वाले हो इस डेटा को, तो यू कांट स्टॉप दिस मेयरली ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ सर्टेन अजम्पशंस. सो दैट इज व्हाई जुडिशरी इट इज जो अगेन पटना हाई कोर्ट ने स्टे लगाया था, जो बेसिस था दैट वाज कि आप सर्वे कर रहे हो कि सेंसस कर रहे हो. सो वो डिफरेंस दैट इज बीन मेड क्लियर. आप जो बोल रहे हो कि कास्ट सर्वे की वजह से इट वुड लीड टू मोर पोलराइजेशन ऑफ द सोसाइटी, तो उसमें अगेन एट द सेम टाइम इट इज ऑल्सो इम्पोर्टेंट टू नो कि जो कास्ट डेमोग्राफी है डिफरेंट स्टेट्स की, वो भी पता होना इम्पोर्टेंट है in order to again go for a targeted welfare of these different communities which exist. So socio-economic
I think you are saying that
sensitivity.
caste system is not bad, right?
Sorry.
This means that caste is not bad in India.
No, it is not bad until and unless it is leading to polarization, it is leading to radicalization of the society.
But on the ground level, do you think it is not happening?
Now, I can't generalize it for pan-India level. In certain areas, definitely it happens and it is there.
Okay, so I will have a stance that rather than caste-based surveys, the government should try to improve this mentality and should go for the social and educationally backward surveys and census, because that will lead to more scientific, more less polarized society rather than the caste-based surveys. Because when the Bihar is going for this, the Haryana will also go for this, and if Haryana will go for caste-based surveys, so definitely in Punjab also, and similarly all the states will do, and various social economic discrimination happens, they will come again in the picture. So we should lead towards more scientific lines these days.
बट अगेन व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट अगेन डेटा एनालिटिक्स एंड इम्पोर्टेंस, वो एग्जिस्ट करता है. तो एज यू आर सेइंग कि इट विल लीड टू मोर पोलराइजेशन, रेडिकलाइजेशन हो सकता है बिकॉज ऑफ द कास्ट सर्वे. सो वी कैन टेक सर्टेन मेजर्स कि वो पोलराइजेशन ना हो, एंड वी अगेन गो फॉरवर्ड विद बोथ द सर्विस. तो दोनों की अपनी सिग्निफिकेंस है व्हेन इट कम्स टू मोर इम्प्रूव्ड क्वालिटी ऑफ पॉलिसी फॉर्मुलेशन.
तो आपको क्या लगता है, क्या मेजर ले सकते हैं पोलराइजेशन को कम करने के लिए? एक या दो मेजर कैसे होगा?
इसमें फर्स्टली when we talk about data transparency or making this data public, तो उसमें we can go ahead with मतलब not going with complete transparency or making that complete data public, वो ले सकते हैं. It can be again restricted to certain amount, and जो data पूरा data है that can be used more for policy formulation, तो उस area पे ज्यादा concentrate कर सकते हैं. And इसके अलावा again जो general measures हैं of awareness generation that can be done. ये पब्लिक किया
आई
जा
थिंक
सकता है कि
ट्रांसपेरेंसी इज नॉट एन इशू इन दीज थिंग्स.
इस डेटा
आई
को
थिंक
कैसे यूज किया जाएगा फॉर पॉलिसी फॉर्मुलेशन, ये हम पब्लिक कर सकते हैं कि इस डेटा को यूज करने के बाद ये मेजर्स लिए गए. तो इसके थ्रू अगर वेलफेयर मेजर्स लिए जा रहे, वो इम्प्लीमेंट किए जा रहे हैं, तो वो पोलराइजेशन को अपने आप रोक देगा.
फॉर एन एग्जांपल, यू आर द मिनिस्टर ऑफ होम अफेयर्स.
ओके.
Now the data has been presented to you by your various officers that, sir, this is the caste based survey we have done.
हम्म.
18% Brahmins and 27% OBC category, and you belong to OBC, let's suppose.
ओके.
Now now you have to create the vacancies in the police department. Now you have to create the vacancies in the police department for the sub inspector post, and there are 1,000 posts. There are apprehensions that there will be a distortion take place in the vacancies in the favor of OBC, isn't so?
एप्रीहेंशंस तो फिर वो हमेशा एग्जिस्ट करते हैं, कास्ट सर्वे से पहले भी एग्जिस्ट करते हैं.
No, if the caste-based survey will not happen, if the survey will happen on the basis of social and educational backward, because in the last we have to bring the downtrodden in the mainstream society. We do not have to bring the upper caste into lower caste and lower caste into upper caste. We have to improve the standard living of all the people of India. That is what I'm saying.
हाँ, तो मैं भी बस इसको सिंपल टर्म्स में यही कह रही हूँ, जो भी एप्रीहेंशंस हैं ये रहेंगे, बट जब तक अगेन रियल ग्राउंड लेवल पे हमें इम्पैक्ट देखने को नहीं मिलेगा कि जो अभी हमें फाइंडिंग्स मिली थ्रू दिस सर्वे, अगर वो हम यूज कर रहे हैं पॉलिसी मेजर्स में, बोल रहे हैं कि उसको वेलफेयर मेजर्स में यूज किया जाएगा, और उसका इम्पैक्ट अगर दिख रहा है, तो पोलराइजेशन अपने आप रुक जाएगी. क्योंकि अगेन डिफरेंट कम्युनिटीज की डिमांड ही है कि उनको रिजर्वेशन इसलिए चाहिए क्योंकि दे आर बैकवर्ड, सोशली बैकवर्ड है, इकोनॉमिकली बैकवर्ड है. अगर उस चीज को टारगेट किया जाएगा, उसके लिए वेलफेयर मेजर्स लिए जाएंगे इन एरियाज में, तो पोलराइजेशन अपने आप रुक जाएगी. दैट्स व्हाट आई एम सेइंग. तो मैं ये बोल रही हूँ बैलेंस तरीके से डेटा, इसको जो भी डेटा मिलेगा उसको यूज करना. एंड जो मेन चीज है, ये अगर वेलफेयर होगा, ग्राउंड लेवल पे दिखाई देगा, तो पोलराइजेशन अपने आप रुक जाएगी. एंड अगेन दिस इज गोइंग टू टेक टाइम. ऑब्वियसली शॉर्ट टर्म मेजर्स में ये सडनली पॉसिबल नहीं है, एंड सडनली पोलराइजेशन भी नहीं हो सकता. तो अगेन अब डेटा कैसे फेज्ड मैनर में उसको पब्लिक कर सकते हो, सिलेक्टेड डेटा पब्लिक कर सकते हो जो इंश्योर करे कि पोलराइजेशन ना क्रिएट करे सोसाइटी में. तो कुछ मेजर्स शॉर्ट टर्म बेसिस पे लिए जा सकते हैं अकॉर्डिंग टू मी. आप कुछ और सजेस्ट कर सकते हो तो अगेन डेफिनेटली आपका स्टांस थोड़ा
Well, I
डिफरेंट.
think, I think on the admin note, I can say that these kind of surveys are going to happen despite knowing the reality. But what we can actually think of is that the casteism is bad. Caste is not bad because the Indian society has its roots in the caste, and the only thing should be done is that the caste should be used in a pragmatic way to identify the real beneficiaries, and so that the poor in the Brahmin category, they can also be uplifted. The poor in the Dalit community, they can also be uplifted with the affirmative action, which comes in the positive discrimination mechanism. And along with that, obviously, there should be checks and balance on the usage of these surveys by the authorities like Election Commission, and then we have Delimitation Commission, and along with a proper mechanism by other vigilance authorities. This much suggestions I give as per now.
ओके. So media bodies, they have written to CGI and the demand is to have norms on interrogation of the journalists, क्योंकि अभी हमने कल देखा था कि under UAPA Act a journalist has been arrested, a journalist from the news click on again the apprehensions of disrupting sovereignty of India and other multiple areas that he's been involved in. So now the demand from the media bodies is again इसके ऊपर एक proper code of conduct होना चाहिए when it comes to interrogation of the journalist. So my question is कि यहाँ पे why only interrogation of journalists, then तो ये पूरा generalize होना चाहिए ना code of interrogation for each and every person जो arrest किया जा रहा है under UAPA Act. So this can be one thing, and मतलब their demand would be again specifically for the journalists, but I would say कि we need to have it for then each and every person. एक generalized code of conduct of interrogation होना चाहिए, but that is definitely needed. So that can be
And
one.
I think that the case has been booked under the UAP provisions, right?
Yes.
So this media body should understand that UAP is an anti-terror law, and the government authority, especially the police department, who books someone into the UAP provisions, the provisions of this act are very much strict, and there is proper scrutiny by the judicial magistrates.
Okay.
So there is no need of interrogation for journalists as such, as you just mentioned, that there is no need of specificity here. Generalization can take place.
Yeah. So new defense indigenization list has futuristic weapons. So this is what we are focusing upon when we talk about our defense area. So state-of-the-art infantry, combat vehicles, all-terrain vehicles, UAVs, medium-range precision kill system for the artillery. They have been manufactured indigenously in India. So that's what we are focusing upon. And impact, so impact stands for basically the Indus X mutual promotion of advanced collaborative technologies. The challenges jointly finalized by IDEX and US Department of Defense. These were launched. So IDEX is basically innovations for defense excellence, and 5 problem statements under IDEX for the 4G. They've been again identified. Then there is again Swavlamban 2.0. So these are some of the factual details. Coming to business page, so government eases the aircraft recovery rules. This is again very important area. There's one important treaty that is mentioned over, but I don't think so it's mentioned. Okay, there is one Cape Town Convention and Protocol of 2001 to which India it is also signatory. So the convention states that in the event of a default, the lessor can terminate the agreement and take possession of the leased assets. So I didn't talk about the aircraft. So certain again measures they have been eased by the government when it comes to aircraft recovery rules. Government notifies the protections offered to the corporate debtors under the IBC will not cover the aircraft, helicopters and engines. So the move aims amidst a legal tussle between Go First and its aircraft lessors on a global downgrade for India. So इसकी वजह से again थोड़े measures को relax किया गया है. And apart from this, there's one specific treaty. So that has not been mentioned aware, but again, वो बहुत important है. So green shipping पे हम focus करें. Green shipping plan to position maritime sector as eco-friendly. So यहाँ पे हम क्या areas पे focus कर रहे हैं? National Action Plan for the Green Shipping promotes eco-friendly practices and incentives for the low emission ships, which will help position India's maritime sector as environmentally responsible. So ships जैसे function कर रही है, उसको we need to again वहाँ पे हम थोड़ा shape कर सकते हैं. Eco-friendly practices introduce की जा सकती हैं. Technology innovations can help us here. India's maritime sector will play a pivotal role in achieving a $20 trillion economy by 2047 with a 9% projected growth rate. So that's why again this it also becomes important. And यहाँ पे again जो sector's vision है, it encompasses quadrupling the port capacity, clean energy fuel hubs creation, cruise tourism growth, shipbuilding and recycling leadership. So ये different areas है जब हम Indian maritime sector की बात करते हैं. Potential of growth कौन से specific areas में exist करते हैं. So taking a Financial Express newspaper. So India has been signing several free trade agreements bilaterally with different countries. So हमारे लिए यहाँ पे अगर हम broadly सोचे, पास्ट में जो हमारे फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट्स हमने साइन किए उनकी परफॉर्मेंस अप टू द मार्क नहीं थी, जो हमारे ऑब्जेक्टिव्स थे हम वो मीट नहीं कर पाए। उसके बाद साइनिंग ऑफ सच फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट्स के बाद हमने देखा था कि हमारा जो ट्रेड है उसमें इतना मतलब ना तो वो इंडिया के फेवर में इतना ज्यादा चेंज हुआ और ना ही हमारा जो इंडिया की तरफ से एक्सपोर्ट्स थे वो उसमें इतनी ज्यादा ग्रोथ देखने को मिली। तो राइट नाउ जो हम फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट साइन कर रहे हैं अकॉर्डिंगली इस चीज पे भी फोकस करना इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाता है, सो दैट वो इंश्योर करे कि हमारा ट्रेड इंक्रीज होना चाहिए। सो यहाँ पे अगेन एक न्यूज है, इंडिया यूके वी आर लाइकली टू साइन एन एफटीए दिस मंथ. So the bilateral investment treaty is signed, India-UK infrastructure financing bridge to address the issues in the investments. That has been taken into account. Differences in these services have been sorted out on the lines of UK-Australia Pact, which is inked in May. So that's how we're going forward. This topic we've already taken up in the Hindu newspaper. So India's experience has been different compared to the rest of the world in terms of the rise and peaking of its manufacturing GDP, and then a plateau that has been witnessed for the last many years. So जब हम इंडिया की इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ पोटेंशियल की बात करते हैं, कहाँ पे सबसे ज्यादा एग्जिस्ट करते हैं, कहाँ पे हम ज्यादा एक्सप्लोर कर सकते हैं अपॉर्चुनिटीज, तो दैट इज डेफिनेटली द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर. सो डेफिनेटली जो हमारा ग्रोथ पैटर्न भी रहा है फ्रॉम अगेन एग्रीकल्चर वी लीप फ्रॉग टू द सर्विसेज सेक्टर. सो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर में इसलिए वी आर स्टिल लैकिंग, या वहाँ पे इतना हम ग्रो नहीं कर पाए हैं कंपैरेटिवली टू अदर कंट्रीज. जो कन्वेंशनल पाथ ऑफ ग्रोथ पैटर्न होता है, इंडिया का ग्रोथ पैटर्न इसलिए थोड़ा डिफरेंट था. सो यहाँ पे मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग जीडीपी को ग्रो करने के लिए वी आर टेकिंग डिफरेंट स्टेप्स, फोकसिंग अपॉन मेक इन इंडिया, फोकसिंग अपॉन सेल्फ रिलायंस. अब डिफरेंट एरियाज में, चाहे आप डिफेंस सेक्टर की बात करो, ग्रीन एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन की बात करो, सो वी आर फोकसिंग अपॉन मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर. एंड then PLI scheme बहुत important role play करती है, and then we are taking certain measures in order to again how we can ensure attracting more of FDI into it. So there are multiple measures that we are taking, and इसके साथ साथ definitely not just स्पेसिफिकली मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर के लिए जो इनिशिएटिव्स लिए जा रहे हैं, बट इवन जब हम बात करते हैं डिजिटल इकोनॉमी की, क्रिएटिंग सिंगल विंडो प्लेटफॉर्म्स एंड वेबसाइट सो दैट जो पेपर वर्क है उसमें टाइम ना लगे. सो बहुत सारे से मल्टीपल मेजर्स लिए जा रहे हैं. देन ईज ऑफ टैक्स फाइलिंग एक ही इंपॉर्टेंट एरिया हो जाता है. सो दीज आर सम ऑफ द मेजर्स दैट आर बीइंग टेकन अप so as to boost growth in manufacturing sector. So Joint Ecological Initiative, NIAF and JBIC, they've launched $600 million climate fund. So the fund will be used in renewable energy, e-mobility and circular economy sectors. So the quasi-sovereign National Investment Infrastructure Fund and Japan Bank for International Cooperation, उन्होंने इस fund को launch किया है. Government of India would contribute 49% to the fund, and remaining 51% जो है it would be coming from Japan. So India-Japan Fund, this will actively invest in India's environmental preservation sector, including renewable energy. So जो climate finance की problem है, that's how India has dealt with it. कि bilateral level पे, as a solution, we have come up with this $600 million of fund. So this can be one of the again sustainable alternatives to address this problem of climate finance, because again we can't ignore addressing and then mitigating the impacts of climate change, because after a certain point of time things would become irreversible. So ensuring better corporate governance, Finance Minister tells the company secretary. So we as people concerned with the company secretaryship, corporate management and good governance committee ourselves for making India in the next 25 years a very well governed and very well managed corporate domain. So corporate governance क्या components होते हैं जब आप बात करो again fiscal management, planning, then independent directors, they also need to have a proper say when it comes to decision making. So these are some of the areas. जब corporate governance की बात करते हैं, again data analytics, that forms an important part of decision making. Corporate governance में एक important area आ सकता है zero based budgeting. वो हम use कर सकते हैं again जब हम होटल्स इंडस्ट्री की भी बात करते हैं तो वहाँ पे भी ग्रेट पोटेंशियल एग्जिस्ट करता है इन टर्म्स ऑफ फाइनेंशियल मैनेजमेंट ऑफ द फंड्स, बिकॉज आज के टाइम में वी कैन से कि मनी इज सरप्लसली अवेलेबल, या पहले के टाइम से कंपेयर करें तो फाइनेंस वाज नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम, बट आज के टाइम में डेफिनेटली फाइनेंसेस डू मैटर. सो जीरो बेस्ड बजटिंग दैट कैन बी इनकॉर्पोरेटेड एंड रिलाइड मोर अपॉन when we talk about the corporate sector. So we'll continue with part 2 in the next video. That's all for this one.